The morning sun streamed through the tall windows of the small-town courtroom, painting golden stripes across the polished wooden benches. A soft murmur of voices floated in the air as townspeople, reporters, and relatives of those involved in the case settled into their seats. The atmosphere was charged with a mixture of curiosity, tension, and routine formality. On most days, the courtroom was a place of sober procedures, hushed whispers, and the occasional raised voice. But today was different. Something unusual had drawn attention long before the trial began: the presence of a highly trained police dog, and the unexpected observer, a tiny, bright-eyed toddler who would soon become the focus of an extraordinary chain of events. Riley sat perched on her mother's lap, her little fingers gripping the edge of the bench. At just 3 years old, she had no understanding of the trial's gravity or the seriousness of the criminal case unfolding before her. She wasn't aware that she was about to play an astonishingly significant role in a story that would capture the hearts of an entire community. Her wide, curious eyes flitted around the room, taking in the faces of strangers, the polished wooden furniture, and the unusual addition to the courtroom today. Max, a sleek, muscular German shepherd trained to detect illegal substances, track criminals, and assist police officers in the line of duty. Detective Harris stood at the front, his uniform crisp, his posture firm yet relaxed. Years of working in law enforcement had taught him to notice the subtle cues others might miss: the twitch of a suspect's hand, the nervous glance, or the faintest sign of deceit. But even he was aware that something about today's proceedings was out of the ordinary. His partner, Max, stood obediently beside him, tail swishing gently, ears perked, eyes alert. Max had been trained for years to detect scents humans couldn't perceive, and he had a near-perfect record of uncovering hidden contraband, stolen property, and even preventing potential dangers before they escalated. Yet Harris knew that the unpredictability of a courtroom and that unpredictability of human behavior meant that even the most routine day could suddenly become extraordinary. The case at hand involved a man accused of a string of burglaries in the town. Over the past months, police had tracked a series of break-ins that seemed unrelated at first glance, but shared subtle patterns: forced locks, missing cash, and peculiar, seemingly insignificant items left behind. The suspect in the courtroom today, Mr. Daniel Spencer, had been under surveillance for weeks. His calm exterior barely masked the nerves he had carried into the courthouse. Today's demonstration with the K-9 unit was intended to be routine, showcasing the capabilities of trained dogs in detecting contraband, a standard procedure in cases involving potential hidden evidence. Riley, oblivious to the nuances of criminal law, was mesmerized by the dog. She tilted her head, fascinated by the animal's sleek coat and focused demeanor. Her tiny fingers twitched, pointing occasionally as Max moved around the courtroom, sniffing bags and boxes brought for the demonstration. To the casual observer, her gestures were simply the curious actions of a toddler experiencing something new. But those small, innocent movements would soon take on an entirely different significance. Riley's mother, Emily, kept a gentle hand on her daughter's back, whispering comforting words. Riley, stay close to me," she murmured, smiling at the toddler's fascination. Emily had never expected a courtroom visit to be so captivating for a 3-year-old, and yet her daughter's eyes sparkled with wonder. She leaned slightly forward, pointing at Max herself to guide Riley's attention, but Riley had already made up her mind where to focus. Something about the dog and the nearby bags seemed to intrigue her beyond ordinary curiosity. The judge, Judge Thompson, a man with decades of experience and a calm, measured presence, observed the room with mild amusement. He was accustomed to unusual events, but rarely had he seen a toddler so intently focused on the proceedings. He adjusted his glasses and noted Riley's pointing, though he did not intervene. After all, Children were often unpredictable, and in a courtroom, a little distraction could be a harmless diversion. Still, the judge filed the moment away in his mind, sensing that the day might unfold differently than anyone expected. Detective Harris began the demonstration, giving Max a command. The dog's muscles rippled under his coat as he sprang into action, sniffing the nearby bags brought in as part of the evidence demonstration. Max moved with grace and precision, ears twitching and nose to the ground. He paused occasionally, alert to scents imperceptible to humans. The room was silent except for the soft padding of Max's paws against the wooden floor. Every eye followed the dog's movements, but most of the adults saw only the surface of the demonstration. Riley, however, seemed to notice subtleties others missed. Her tiny finger twitched toward a particular bag, a gesture that seemed almost instinctive. Emily laughed softly, thinking it was mere childlike curiosity. "Yes, that's the dog, sweetie. Isn't he nice?" she whispered. But Riley's gaze remained fixed, unwavering. She leaned forward slightly, pointing insistently at the bag the suspect held. Max, as if responding to some invisible cue, stopped and stared at the same bag, tail lowering, ears alert. Harris felt a shiver of recognition. It was rare for Max to fixate without reason, and he had never reacted to a toddler's gesture in such a coordinated way. Something was unfolding that neither detective nor parent could have anticipated. The suspect, Daniel Spencer, shifted uneasily in his chair. He avoided looking at Riley, but could feel the tension building. The courtroom seemed to hold its breath, unaware of the subtle drama that was developing. The other spectators, journalists, and family members focused on the dog and the officer, oblivious to the silent communication occurring between a child and a trained animal. Riley's innocent pointing had not yet been understood, but it carried a significance that would soon astonish everyone. As Harris continued observing, he noticed a pattern. Every time Riley's finger twitched, Max's body mirrored an alert stance. The alignment was uncanny. It was almost as if the toddler and the dog were communicating on an instinctual level, bypassing the adult perceptions of the courtroom. Harris felt a mixture of awe and cautious anticipation. This was not routine. This was extraordinary. The courtroom, though quiet, hummed with anticipation as the demonstration proceeded. Max's nose twitched. His eyes narrowed on the bag that Riley had repeatedly pointed at. Harris exchanged a glance with the judge, who raised a brow in mild curiosity. No one yet realized that this combination of innocence and training would lead to a discovery that could change the course of the trial. Riley, in her small, determined way, had become the unwitting center of attention in a case that had already captured the town's imagination. By the time the demonstration concluded, the tension had thickened. Every eye that had previously focused on Max's performance now glanced at Riley and the suspect. Harris knew the moment of truth was approaching. Riley's persistent pointing had not gone unnoticed by him. Something significant was about to happen. Something that would astonish the courtroom, and eventually the entire community. In the back of the courtroom, Emily whispered softly to herself, marveling at her daughter's focus. "She's just curious," she muttered, though a part of her couldn't shake the feeling that Riley's attention was more than mere playfulness. Riley's tiny hand remained extended, unwavering. Her eyes locked onto the suspect's bag, the same bag that had captured Max's attention. And so, the calm before the storm continued. The courtroom, unaware of the extraordinary chain of events about to unfold, maintained its formal composure. Detective Harris adjusted his stance. Max remained alert, and Riley's small finger continued its silent insistence. Something in the ordinary afternoon had shifted, signaling that what was about to happen would leave everyone in the room stunned. In that quiet, golden-lit courtroom, the stage was set for a moment that would be remembered for years. The moment when a toddler, a police dog, and the course of justice would converge in a way no one could have anticipated. Detective Harris stood at the front of the courtroom, his posture both commanding and calm. Today was a routine K9 demonstration, something he had done countless times, but something about this session felt different. Max, the German shepherd, sat beside him, muscles coiled like springs, ears pricked, and eyes scanning the room with an intensity that spoke of years of training and experience. Max was not just a dog. He was a partner, a protector, and an expert in detecting substances humans couldn't perceive. Today, however, it would not be Max alone capturing attention. A tiny observer, Riley, a 3-year-old toddler, would play a role that no one anticipated. Harris began the demonstration, speaking in a calm, authoritative voice. "Max, search," he commanded. The dog immediately sprang into action, moving with fluid precision. His paws barely made a sound on the polished wooden floor as he sniffed each piece of evidence laid out for inspection. The courtroom grew quiet. People leaned forward in their seats, fascinated by the dog's efficiency. They had seen K9 demonstrations before, but there was something compelling about watching a highly trained dog perform under pressure, detecting hidden substances with such precision. Riley, seated on her mother's lap, followed every movement with wide-eyed wonder. Her small hand twitched with excitement, pointing instinctively toward the bags Max was inspecting. To the casual observer, it seemed like simple childlike curiosity. But the alignment between Riley's gestures and Max's actions soon became apparent to Detective Harris. Every time Riley pointed, Max paused, sniffed more intently, and focused on the same object. Harris's trained eyes caught the synchronicity. It was unusual, almost impossible to predict, and yet undeniable. Emily, Riley's mother, watched with a mixture of amusement and surprise. She whispered softly, "Isn't he amazing, Riley?" But Riley wasn't looking at Max for mere fascination. Her finger remained extended toward a specific bag held by the suspect, Daniel Spencer. She tilted her head, eyes narrowing slightly, her tiny brow furrowing in concentration. Emily frowned slightly, wondering how a toddler could be so focused on a single object in a room filled with distractions. She had never seen Riley behave this way before. There was determination in her child's gaze, an instinctive awareness that defied explanation. Meanwhile, Judge Thompson observed the unusual scene with curiosity. A toddler pointing at a bag while a police dog reacted in perfect alignment was not something he encountered daily. He leaned back in his chair, adjusting his glasses, intrigued but unsure whether to intervene. He decided to allow the demonstration to continue, sensing that whatever was unfolding would reveal itself in due time. His years on the bench had taught him patience and observation. Sometimes the smallest details, overlooked by most, could turn out to be the most crucial. Max's movements were precise. He approached each bag carefully, sniffing, circling, and occasionally pausing to indicate something hidden beneath layers of clothing or inside containers. The room's attention remained divided between the dog and the demonstration, with journalists ready to jot down notes for their stories. The suspect shifted uneasily in his seat, seemingly aware that something unusual was occurring. He avoided making eye contact with both Max and the small child whose tiny finger had drawn attention to his bag. Riley's curiosity grew with every passing second. She leaned slightly forward on her mother's lap, her little finger trembling as she pointed insistently at the same bag. Her voice, barely audible, squeaked out a single word. "That." Emily chuckled, assuming it was a playful guess. "Yes, sweetie, that's the dog," she whispered. But her daughter remained undeterred, continuing to gesture toward the bag with an almost uncanny persistence. Her tiny hand seemed to command the attention of both dog and human, a silent insistence that something important lay within that unassuming bag. Detective Harris's instincts, honed over years of fieldwork, tingled with recognition. Max's reaction was normal for a trained canine, alert, focused, and cautious. But the combination of Riley's pointing and Max's behavior was highly unusual. It was as if the toddler had unwittingly guided the dog's attention, signaling something significant. Harris exchanged a brief glance with the judge, who raised an eyebrow but remained silent. The officer felt a surge of anticipation. Sometimes in law enforcement, ordinary events could lead to extraordinary discoveries, and he sensed this might be one of those moments. As the demonstration progressed, the courtroom's atmosphere shifted subtly. The journalists, spectators, and family members had initially been interested in the canine's abilities alone, but now there was a new layer of intrigue. Everyone noticed the small child, intensely focused, pointing at the bag with a determination far beyond her years. Whispers began circulating among the audience. "Is she pointing at something?" One person murmured. "I think she wants that bag," said another, astonished. The energy in the room changed. Tension intermingled with curiosity. Rayleigh's actions were more than random. Her tiny finger traced the outline of the bag, her eyes locked onto the suspect, Daniel Spencer. The man shifted uncomfortably, beads of sweat forming on his forehead. He appeared calm at first glance, but there was a flicker of unease in his eyes. Max's reaction mirrored Riley's, creating a silent communication between child and dog that no adult in the room could fully comprehend. Harris felt his heartbeat quicken. He had encountered dangerous suspects before, but he had never witnessed a moment where a toddler's instinct and a canine's training converged with such synchronicity. Emily, sensing her daughter's determination, leaned closer and whispered, "Riley, sweetie, stay close to me." But Riley was undeterred. She pointed more insistently, her tiny voice attempting to articulate the importance of the object. Though she could not understand the gravity of the situation, her instincts were guiding her. Detective Harris watched, realizing that sometimes innocence could illuminate truths that adults overlooked. The alignment of Riley's gestures and Max's reactions suggested that this bag, previously assumed to be ordinary, might contain something significant. The suspect's unease grew. Daniel Spencer's hands trembled slightly as he shifted in his seat, trying to mask his discomfort. He glanced at the child and the dog, sensing the scrutiny directed at him. Max paused in front of the bag, sniffing with a heightened alertness, tail lowering, ears forward. Detective Harris took a careful step closer. The courtroom seemed to hold its collective breath. Everyone realized that what had been intended as a routine demonstration had escalated into something far more consequential. Judge Thompson, now fully attentive, leaned forward on the bench. He could feel the tension radiating through the room. The alignment of events, the toddler's pointing, the canine's focused reaction, and the suspect's visible discomfort could not be ignored. He allowed Detective Harris to continue, knowing that the unfolding situation demanded immediate attention. The demonstration was no longer just a showcase of Max's training. It was becoming a pivotal moment in the trial itself. Riley's tiny finger remained unwavering. She leaned slightly forward, eyes wide, tracing the outline of the suspect's bag. Her mother, Emily, whispered reassurances, still uncertain of what her daughter sensed. The courtroom's spectators were captivated, caught between curiosity and anticipation. Even those accustomed to criminal proceedings found themselves leaning in, fascinated by the unexpected convergence of innocence, intuition, and law enforcement expertise. Detective Harris felt a mix of caution and excitement. He had trained Max for countless hours, but he had never anticipated this extraordinary collaboration with an untrained observer, a toddler whose instincts, however innocent, were leading them toward a critical discovery. He signaled to Max, who remained alert, nose twitching, eyes fixed on the bag. Every muscle in the dog's body was tense, ready to react. Harris took a slow breath, preparing to uncover whatever secrets the bag might hold. And so, The unexpected introduction had completed its initial act. Max, the seasoned canine, and Riley, the small, determined toddler, had created a silent alliance. Their attention converged on a single point: the suspect's bag. The courtroom had been transformed from a place of ordinary proceedings into a stage for an extraordinary event. Every spectator, from the journalists to the judge to the other attendees, sensed the tension and importance of the moment. The scene was set, and the revelation was imminent. In that quiet courtroom, under the warm morning sunlight streaming through the windows, the ordinary had become extraordinary. A toddler, a police dog, and a nervous suspect stood at the center of a moment that would soon stun everyone present. Detective Harris knew that the coming seconds could change the course of the trial. Riley's innocent pointing and Max's trained alertness had already drawn the courtroom into a suspenseful, unspoken drama. And all who were present felt it, the calm before the storm, the delicate moment just before revelation, when nothing was as it seemed and everything was about to be uncovered. The courtroom seemed to hold its breath. Riley's tiny hand remained extended, pointing with unwavering insistence at the bag in Daniel Spencer's possession. Her mother, Emily, leaned closer, a soft smile on her face, still believing it was simple curiosity. "Riley, sweetie, that's just a bag. Don't worry about it," she whispered gently. But Riley's attention was undeterred. Something about the bag had captivated her in a way nothing else in the room had. Her small eyes squinted as she stared intently, and her lips parted slightly as if she wanted to say something more. She could not articulate why, but something about that bag felt different. Detective Harris, standing nearby, was fully aware that this was no ordinary moment. Max, the German shepherd, had been trained for years to detect substances hidden from human eyes, yet his reactions now seemed synchronized with the toddler's gestures. Every time Riley pointed at the bag, Max's nose twitched, his body stiffened, and his focus intensified. Harris exchanged a brief glance with Judge Thompson, whose interest was now piqued. This was no longer a routine demonstration. The unusual alignment of child and canine had transformed it into an event that demanded attention. The suspect, Daniel Spencer, shifted uneasily in his chair. Though he had attempted to maintain a calm demeanor throughout the proceedings, the subtle signals of his nervousness were becoming apparent to everyone watching. His hands fidgeted with the edges of his jacket. His eyes darted toward the toddler, and then back to Max. The courtroom, initially filled with a low murmur of spectators, had fallen into a quiet, expectant tension. The combination of innocence and trained instinct had created a moment no one present would forget. Riley's finger moved with determination. She leaned slightly forward on her mother's lap, pointing at the bag repeatedly. Her tiny voice squeaked again, attempting to direct attention. "That one! That one!" Emily chuckled softly, but the chuckle faded as she noticed Max's behavior. The dog was completely still now, tail low but rigid, nostrils flaring, eyes locked onto the very bag Riley had been indicating. Harris stepped closer, his experienced eyes scanning the suspect and the bag for signs of anything unusual. Alignment between the toddler and the dog was uncanny. Harris had seen Max react to subtle scents, but never had he witnessed the convergence of instinctive human behavior, albeit from a cause 3-year-old and trained canine alertness. The hairs on the back of his neck stood on end. Something was hidden in that bag, and Max's reaction combined with Riley's persistent pointing left little room for doubt. It was a rare moment when intuition and training intersected perfectly, pointing to a truth the adult eyes in the courtroom had yet to perceive. Judge Thompson observed quietly, his interest intensifying. A toddler pointing at a bag, while a police dog reacted with such precision, was an anomaly he could not ignore. He adjusted his glasses, leaning forward, and considered the next steps carefully. He understood the importance of maintaining courtroom protocol, Yet he also recognized the significance of the moment. This was no longer a demonstration. It had become a potential turning point in the trial. Every member of the courtroom staff, every spectator, seemed to sense the anticipation building. Emily glanced at her daughter, suddenly aware that Riley's behavior was unusual. "Riley, honey, you really like that dog, don't you?" she asked softly. But Riley didn't respond in words. She only pointed more insistently, her eyes unwavering from the bag. Something in her expression conveyed urgency, though she did not fully understand what it meant. Her mother felt a chill, realizing that her daughter's innocent gesture might carry more weight than anyone had imagined. Harris motioned to Max, giving him a subtle signal. The dog remained alert but calm, his focus unbroken. Harris then addressed Judge Thompson. "Your Honor, may I inspect the bag?" he asked quietly, ensuring he followed protocol. The judge nodded, recognizing the unusual circumstances. "You may," he replied, his voice steady but tinged with curiosity. The courtroom watched intently, knowing that the moment of discovery had arrived. Riley's persistence had set the stage for something extraordinary. As Harris approached the suspect, Daniel Spencer's demeanor shifted noticeably. He tried to appear relaxed, but his hands trembled slightly. His eyes darted toward Riley, then Max, then back to the officer. It was clear to Harris that the suspect understood the significance of the moment. Every instinct in his years of law enforcement told him that he was about to uncover hidden contraband. Max's alertness, combined with Riley's pointing, created a rare opportunity to reveal the truth. Harris knelt slightly as he reached for the bag. Max remained close, watching intently, tail swishing but body rigid. Riley leaned closer on her mother's lap, her eyes widening with fascination and anticipation. She had no idea what she was witnessing, yet she felt a strange sense of importance. Her tiny fingers still pointed, her small voice whispered, "That one," as if encouraging Harris to uncover the secret she instinctively sensed. The courtroom remained silent, every eye fixed on the unfolding scene. Journalists poised their cameras and pens, sensing that something remarkable was happening. Spectators leaned forward, holding their breath. Even Judge Thompson, seasoned in observing human behavior, seemed captivated by the alignment of events. The ordinary had become extraordinary, and everyone present felt it. Harris carefully unzipped the bag. Inside, hidden beneath layers of clothing and everyday items, were several small packages containing illegal substances. Gasps echoed through the courtroom. Daniel Spencer froze, his face paling. Max barked softly, a low alert sound, confirming the discovery. Riley's parents, Emily and her husband, stared in disbelief. Their daughter's innocent pointing had led to uncovering hidden contraband, a moment that defied explanation. Riley, oblivious to the gravity of the discovery, giggled softly and pointed again, as if celebrating her success. "That one," she squeaked, eyes wide with excitement. Emily hugged her tightly, trying to suppress her own shock and amusement. You did that?" she whispered, marveling at her daughter's intuition. Detective Harris shook his head slightly, impressed and amazed. He had relied on Max for years, but he had never anticipated a toddler playing such an unintentional yet critical role in the Bossa discovery. The courtroom was in a state of stunned silence. Daniel Spencer was immediately handcuffed, his earlier attempts at calm demeanor shattered. The jurors, spectators, and media personnel processed the scene, amazed by the alignment of events. A toddler, in her innocent curiosity, had highlighted something a trained canine had detected, ultimately exposing the hidden evidence. The impact of the moment was profound, and its rarity left everyone present in awe. Judge Thompson cleared his throat, breaking the tension with measured authority. "The evidence has been secured," he stated calmly. "The proceedings will continue. Yet even his composed words could not diminish the sense of astonishment. Every person in the courtroom recognized the extraordinary nature of the event. Riley had become an unwitting hero, and Max had demonstrated, once again, the incredible capabilities of trained K-9 units. Detective Harris placed a reassuring hand on Max's collar, acknowledging the dog's role, while also marveling at Riley's unexpected contribution. "Good boy, Max," he murmured, then glanced at the toddler. "And you too, young lady," he added softly, smiling. Emily chuckled nervously, still trying to process the scene. "She didn't even know what she was pointing at," she whispered. The officer nodded. "Sometimes, instinct is more powerful than knowledge," he replied. The media, quick to notice unusual stories, began taking notes feverishly. The tale of a toddler inadvertently helping a police dog uncover illegal substances was extraordinary, unbelievable to anyone who had not witnessed it firsthand. Spectators whispered among themselves, marveling at the improbable alignment of innocence and trained expertise. It was a story that would soon spread far beyond the confines of the courtroom. As the courtroom slowly returned to order, Riley's tiny hand relaxed, still pointing occasionally at Max, as if checking that he approved of her observation. The toddler, blissfully unaware of the gravity of her actions, had unwittingly played a crucial role in a legal proceeding that might have otherwise unfolded differently. Detective Harris and Judge Thompson shared a brief nod, silently acknowledging that today's events were extraordinary, unlikely to be repeated, and profoundly memorable. The calm of the morning had transformed into a moment of astonishment. Riley, Max, and a suspect unaware of the alignment between innocence and trained instinct had created a scene that would be remembered for years. Even the most experienced law enforcement officers and courtroom officials present could not help but marvel at the improbability of what had just occurred. A toddler's curiosity and a dog's training had intersected in a way that left everyone stunned. As Riley's parents guided her gently back to her seat, she continued to point occasionally, oblivious to the significance of her gestures. Detective Harris ensured the bag and evidence were secured, while Max remained vigilant, alert to any further signs of threat. The courtroom, still buzzing with whispers, recognized that an unusual story had just unfolded, a story in which a tiny finger had revealed a truth that adults might have overlooked, and a trained K-9 had confirmed it. And so, the moment had passed, leaving an indelible impression on everyone present. Riley's instinct, Max's training, and the suspect's nervousness had converged to create an unforgettable event. It was a moment that combined innocence, expertise, and fate, a moment it would soon capture the imagination of an entire community. The calm before the storm had been shattered, replaced by astonishment, admiration, and an understanding that sometimes the smallest gestures could have the largest consequences. The courtroom, still buzzing from the discovery, had shifted from routine curiosity to palpable tension. Every eye seemed locked on Daniel Spencer, whose composure had all but vanished. He sat rigid, hands fidgeting, eyes darting nervously between the evidence, Detective Harris, and the little girl whose innocent gestures had sparked the revelation. Riley, oblivious to the gravity of her actions, continued to point and squirm on her mother's lap, her tiny voice squeaking intermittently, "That one." The adults around her were frozen in a mix of awe and disbelief. How could a toddler have played such a crucial role in exposing hidden contraband? Detective Harris moved carefully toward the suspect, maintaining professionalism while keeping his hand near Max, ready for any sudden reaction. Max, the German shepherd, remained fully alert, ears forward, tail low but tense. His nostrils flared, nose twitching with the scent of the substances recently discovered. Harris's years of experience told him that the suspect's body language was telling. Every subtle tremor, every glance of avoidance indicated growing guilt. The man was aware that the moment of exposure had arrived, and his attempts to mask nervousness were failing. Judge Thompson's expression remained calm but scrutinizing. He adjusted his glasses, leaning forward on the bench, his eyes following every movement in the courtroom. He had seen many suspects attempt to feign composure under pressure, but rarely with such subtle, yet obvious cues of anxiety. His trained eyes picked up on Spencer's shallow breathing, slight sweating, and the way he shifted in his chair whenever Max or Riley caught his attention. The judge understood that the unfolding scene was no ordinary courtroom drama. The combination of a toddler's instincts and a canine's training had created a situation of remarkable significance. Riley's mother, Emily, tried to soothe her daughter while also processing the shock herself. She whispered gently, "Riley, sweetie, you're okay. Just stay close to Mommy." But Riley's focus remained unwavering. Her small hand continued to point at the suspect's bag, as if silently insisting, "Look closer. Something's there." Emily realized that her daughter's attention was more than mere curiosity. It carried weight, drawing the adult's focus back to a critical piece of evidence. Emily glanced at Detective Harris, silently wondering how such a young child could influence such a serious situation. Harris carefully approached Spencer, crouching slightly to maintain a non-threatening but authoritative presence. "Sir," he said firmly, "we need to verify the contents of this bag further. Please remain seated and calm while we proceed." Spencer's hands trembled visibly, and his lips pressed tightly together. He nodded reluctantly, but avoided eye contact. Every person in the courtroom could feel the tension, a thick, almost tangible pressure that seemed to envelop the room. What had been a routine demonstration had escalated into an extraordinary intersection of instinct, observation, and training. Max, trained to respond to Harris's commands, remained vigilant. He sniffed the air near the suspect's bag, nose twitching, ears twitching, tail stiff. The dog's behavior conveyed a message without words. Something was still not right. Harris's eyes followed Max's every subtle movement, reading the cues that only a trained handler could interpret. He realized that Spencer's apparent calmness was a facade, and that every instinct Max displayed corroborated the suspicions that had arisen from Riley's pointing. Together, the toddler and the canine had inadvertently created a scenario where deception could not remain hidden. The spectators, previously murmuring quietly among themselves, became acutely aware of the mounting tension. Whispers spread like wildfire. "Did you see that? The kid just pointed at the bag," one bystander said. Another added, "And the dog is reacting too. Something's definitely wrong." Even seasoned journalists and legal professionals in the room exchanged glances, silently acknowledging the unusual sequence of events. Riley, unaware of the attention she was drawing, continued to gesture and occasionally giggle, adding a surreal layer of innocence to the tense scene. Judge Thompson decided it was time to address the situation formally. He cleared his throat, drawing the attention of everyone present. "Detective Harris, please proceed with the inspection," he said calmly, though his eyes lingered on the suspect. The judge's voice carried authority, signaling that the next steps would be official, sanctioned, and irreversible. Spencer's eyes widened slightly, realizing that the discovery of contraband was no longer merely a demonstration. It had now escalated to a legally consequential moment. Harris nodded, crouching near the suspect's bag with careful precision. He gestured subtly to Max, who moved closer, keeping his body rigid and his attention focused entirely on the bag. Max's presence alone was enough to make Spencer shift nervously, revealing cracks in his attempt at composure. The suspect's hands fidgeted, trembling as he attempted to maintain control, but the evidence had already made itself known to those paying attention. Harris's trained gaze did not miss a single micro-expression, every twitch confirming the growing certainty that the suspect was aware of his impending exposure. Emily, realizing the gravity of the moment, held Riley gently, while simultaneously marveling at her daughter's unexpected role. She just kept pointing, Emily whispered to herself, astonished. She didn't even know what was going on. Yet Riley's small gestures had created an undeniable link between instinct and trained vigilance. Detective Harris had relied on Max for years to uncover hidden substances and criminal evidence. But the addition of Riley's innocent pointing added an unforeseen layer of intuition that even the most experienced officer could not have anticipated. The courtroom itself seemed suspended in time. Every observer leaned forward slightly, waiting for the next move. Spencer's attempts to mask his nervousness were becoming futile. The subtle cues of guilt, the shifting of weight, trembling fingers, avoidance of eye contact were now evident to everyone, including those unfamiliar with law enforcement tactics. It was a rare moment where human behavior, canine training, and toddler intuition aligned perfectly, revealing truths that words alone could not capture. Harris signaled to Max, who moved slightly closer to the bag. The German shepherd's low growl was barely audible, yet unmistakable in its warning. Spencer's eyes widened, a flicker of fear passing over his features. Detective Harris's instincts screamed that the suspect's composure was cracking. The courtroom audience, sensing the change, collectively leaned in, holding their breath as the tension thickened. Riley, unaware of the gravity, pointed again as if to say, "This is the one. Pay attention." Judge Thompson maintained calm authority, though his eyes revealed keen interest. "Detective Harris, please secure the bag and confirm its contents," he instructed. The judge's measured tone allowed the legal process to proceed while accommodating the extraordinary circumstances. Max remained attentive, his posture alert, ears forward, nose twitching as he detected subtle residual scents of illicit materials. Every observer, from jurors to family members, sensed that the ordinary rhythm of courtroom procedure had shifted dramatically. Spencer swallowed hard, attempting to mask panic with forced composure. I don't know what's in there," he stammered, voice unsteady. His words rang hollow, easily contradicted by the evidence Max had signaled and Riley had highlighted. The courtroom collectively recognized the disconnect between his claims and reality. Detective Harris's eyes narrowed, reading every detail, every micro-expression, every subtle cue confirming the suspect's guilt. The alignment between Max's trained alertness and Riley's innocent pointing had stripped away any pretense, leaving only truth. Harris knelt slightly, hands steady, reaching for the bag. He glanced at Riley briefly, smiling faintly at the small child whose curiosity had inadvertently played a pivotal role. Emily whispered softly, "Thank you, baby," as if acknowledging Riley's instinctual contribution. Riley simply giggled, pointing again at the bag, completely unaware of the magnitude of her actions. The courtroom atmosphere was electric, every spectator and legal participant fully engaged, caught in a moment where innocence and vigilance intersected. As Harris carefully unzipped the bag, the room collectively tensed. Max remained close, pale stiff, ears forward, body coiled like a spring. Spencer's hands trembled violently, and his eyes darted between the officer, the toddler, and the dog. The whispers and low gasps from spectators filled the courtroom, the weight of anticipation almost tangible. It was a rare moment of convergence. Human behavior, canine training, and childlike intuition had combined to create a scene of suspense that no one would forget. And then the contents of the bag were revealed. Small packages containing illegal substances, carefully concealed beneath layers of everyday items. Gasps erupted, and Spencer's face went pale. Max let out a soft, confirming bark, tail stiff, but wagging slightly in acknowledgement. Riley pointed excitedly, squeaking, "That one!" Emily clutched her daughter, half laughing, half stunned. Detective Harris nodded to Judge Thompson, who quietly observed, recognizing the rarity of what had just occurred. The courtroom had witnessed a moment where innocence, vigilance, and intuition converged to reveal a hidden truth. From that moment, suspicion solidified into certainty. Spencer's earlier composure had been shattered, his nervous behavior now fully aligned with the evidence. Every subtle gesture, micro-EXP. The courtroom seemed to pause, holding its breath as Detective Harris carefully lifted the bag from Daniel Spencer's hands. Max remained at his side, taut and alert, tail low, eyes fixed on the bag, as if expecting something more. The German Shepherd had been trained for years to detect contraband, but today, paired with the unintentional guidance of a tiny toddler, he had already revealed enough to spark suspicion. The audience, unaware of the details, leaned forward collectively, sensing the gravity of the moment, even without knowing exactly what was happening. Riley, still perched on her mother's lap, pointed vigorously at the bag, squeaking once again, "That one." Emily chuckled nervously, unsure whether to be amused or alarmed. Her daughter's innocent excitement seemed out of place in the somber courtroom, but the alignment of Riley's gestures with Max's trained alertness had already drawn the attention of everyone present. Even seasoned journalists, who had seen countless cases, exchanged glances, knowing that they were witnessing an extraordinary event. Detective Harris unzipped the bag slowly, methodically, ensuring that each movement adhered to legal protocols while maintaining control over the unfolding scene. Every eye in the room followed his movements intently. The suspect, Daniel Spencer, shifted uncomfortably in his seat, sweat glistening on his brow. His earlier attempts to appear calm had dissolved completely, replaced by a tension so palpable it radiated across the courtroom. He avoided looking at Riley, Max, or Harris directly, knowing instinctively that his reactions were betraying him. Harris reached into the bag and began to reveal its contents. At first glance, the items appeared ordinary: clothing, personal effects, and a few small bags. But Harris's trained eyes quickly identified irregularities. Carefully lifting a small, tightly wrapped package, he examined it and noted the faint chemical scent that Max had already signaled. The German Shepherd's low, soft growl confirmed Harris's suspicion. Riley's finger, still pointed at the bag, seemed to acknowledge the discovery in her own innocent way. The alignment between child and dog created a scene that felt almost scripted, though no one had planned it. The audience murmured in soft disbelief. "What is that?" whispered a bystander, craning to see the contents. "Is that drugs?" asked another, voice barely audible. The courtroom had shifted from a routine legal procedure into a stage of suspense, with every person present keenly aware that the evidence about to be revealed would have serious consequences. The atmosphere was electric, a mixture of anticipation, curiosity, and awe. Harris held up the package, confirming what he already suspected. Inside were several small bundles of illegal substances, carefully concealed within layers of clothing and other personal effects. Each package was meticulously wrapped, indicating a deliberate attempt to hide them. Max let out a soft bark, tail stiff, signaling a clear alert. Riley squealed softly, pointing even more vigorously at the evidence. "That one! That one!" she exclaimed, unaware of the legal and criminal significance of what she had just indicated. The suspect, Daniel Spencer, paled visibly, lips pressed tightly together. His earlier confidence had crumbled, replaced by raw fear and helplessness. He had hoped the demonstration would be routine, perhaps even a distraction from any scrutiny. But the alignment of Riley's intuition and Max's training had revealed the truth. Every subtle cue of guilt was now exposed: trembling fingers, darting eyes, and shallow, rapid breaths. Even those unfamiliar with behavioral observation could see the cracks in his composure. Judge Thompson cleared his throat, regaining control of the courtroom. "Detective Harris, please ensure the evidence is documented and secured," he instructed, his voice calm but commanding. The judge's composure contrasted sharply with the palpable tension in the room, grounding the proceedings while allowing the extraordinary discovery to take its rightful place in the legal process. Harris nodded, signaling Max to stay alert while he handled the bag carefully. Journalists scrambled to record the moment. Cameras clicked and notepads were scribbled across. Reporters whispered among themselves, aware that they were witnessing a story unlike any other. A toddler had unintentionally guided a police dog to uncover contraband that adults had overlooked. The convergence of innocence and trained expertise created a narrative that no one could ignore. The story was extraordinary, not just because of the discovery, but because of the unusual participants who had led to it. Emily held Riley close, gently trying to calm her daughter. "You're okay, sweetie," she whispered. But Riley, wide-eyed and giggling, seemed oblivious to the magnitude of what had occurred. She had pointed, squeaked, and watched, but had no understanding of the impact of her actions. Yet her contribution had been critical. Detective Harris recognized that the toddler's gestures had been instrumental in directing attention to the bag, confirming suspicions that might have otherwise taken longer to uncover. The courtroom audience reacted in a mix of astonishment and admiration. Spectators whispered among themselves, exchanging incredulous glances. "Did you see that? The kid and the dog," one woman murmured. "I can't believe it," said a man nearby. The combination of innocence, instinct, and trained skill had created a moment that transcended routine legal procedure. Even Judge Thompson allowed a faint, approving smile, acknowledging the unusual but undeniably effective collaboration between the toddler and the K-9 unit. Harris secured the evidence carefully, documenting each step meticulously. Max remained vigilant, standing close to the officer, ears forward and eyes scanning the room. The dog's posture conveyed authority and readiness, signaling that the situation was under control. Yet the alertness suggested that Harris and Max were prepared for any sudden developments. Spencer remained seated, handcuffed, a picture of defeated composure. He had underestimated the alignment of chance and instinct, the combination of a toddler's intuition and a trained dog's expertise had exposed him completely. Riley continued to point, giggling softly, seemingly celebrating the small victory in her own innocent way. Emily smiled and whispered, "You're amazing, baby." Harris crouched slightly, smiling faintly at the toddler. "Good job, little one," he murmured. Though Riley did not understand, her instinctive gesture had made a tangible difference, helping to uncover evidence that would play a pivotal role in the legal process. It was a moment that would be remembered far beyond the walls of the courtroom. The media quickly recognized the significance of the scene. Photographers captured images of Riley pointing at the bag, Max standing alert beside Detective Harris, and the suspect's expression of defeat. Journalists began jotting notes frantically, knowing that the story would resonate with readers and viewers alike. The tale of an unlikely partnership between a toddler and a K-9 that had led to the discovery of hidden contraband. The narrative was compelling, unusual, and heartwarming, illustrating how even the smallest participants could make a profound impact. Judge Thompson restored order to the courtroom, signaling that the official proceedings would continue. "The evidence has been properly secured," he announced. "The trial will proceed accordingly." Yet the sense of wonder lingered in the air. Every person present understood that today's events were extraordinary. A toddler's pointing and a dog's trained alertness had revealed a truth that might have remained hidden without their combined, unintentional guidance. Spencer's expression showed total realization of the consequences. His attempts at deception and calm composure had been rendered futile. Detective Harris maintained his professional demeanor, but he allowed himself a brief moment of satisfaction. Max had performed flawlessly, and the toddler's instinctive pointing had highlighted what even adults might have missed. The courtroom had witnessed an extraordinary demonstration of collaboration across species and ages, underscoring the unpredictable ways in which truth could emerge. As Riley leaned slightly forward, still pointing at Max and the bag, Emily whispered, "I think you helped the police today, sweetie." Riley giggled, delighted by the attention, not fully understanding the magnitude of the statement. Harris chuckled softly, shaking his head in amazement. "Sometimes the smallest observers notice what the rest of us miss," he murmured, more to himself than anyone else. Max wagged his tail slightly, as if acknowledging the toddler's unintentional heroism. The courtroom slowly returned to routine, though the energy of the moment lingered. Spectators whispered, journalists continued documenting the scene, and the legal process resumed. Yet the memory of the alignment of Riley's pointing, Max's alert, and the suspect's nervous behavior would remain vivid in the minds of all present. It was a moment where innocence, instinct, and training combined to uncover truth, a rare convergence that highlighted how extraordinary circumstances could emerge from the most ordinary settings. Detective Harris secured the bag as Spencer was escorted by officers, and Max followed closely, his posture alert and vigilant. Riley remained on her mother's lap, still pointing occasionally, eyes wide with fascination. Emily hugged her daughter gently, a mix of pride, amusement, and disbelief washing over her. "You have no idea what you just did," she whispered. Indeed, the toddler had unknowingly played a central role in a discovery that would have lasting consequences. By the time the courtroom adjourned for a short break, the story had already begun. News of the extraordinary courtroom incident spread quickly through the community. By the time the courthouse doors closed for the day, reporters were already calling in live updates, eager to relay the story of a toddler and a police dog who had unwittingly collaborated to reveal hidden contraband. The story's appeal was immediate. A 3-year-old, guided by instinct, had pointed out a suspect's bag just as Max, the highly trained German Shepherd, confirmed the presence of illegal substances. For many, the combination of innocence and professional skill made the tale impossible to ignore. Emily, still holding Riley tightly in her arms, tried to process the day's events. "I can't believe this happened," she whispered, glancing down at her daughter, who was now giggling and pointing randomly at her mother's handbag. The toddler had no comprehension of the significance of her gestures, yet her small actions had become central to an unfolding narrative that would soon gain national attention. Emily marveled at the absurdity and wonder of it all. Her daughter, without knowledge or training, had played a pivotal role in law enforcement history that day. Detective Harris returned to the precinct later that afternoon, Max trotting beside him, ears alert but tail relaxed. Harris recounted the events to his fellow officers, reliving each detail with a mixture of pride and disbelief. "I've handled K-9 operations for years," he explained, "but I've never seen anything like this." Riley's pointing wasn't just coincidental. Her instincts aligned perfectly with Max's training. "It's remarkable." His colleagues shook their heads, some chuckling in disbelief, others nodding with solemn respect. They recognized that the toddler had, in an unintentional but vital way, become an unlikely hero in their ongoing efforts to maintain safety. Meanwhile, local media outlets were quick to seize upon the story. News crews visited Emily and Riley at their home, cameras capturing the toddler's bright eyes and infectious smile. The narrative was irresistible. Innocence meeting experience, chance aligning with trained skill. Headlines read things like, "Toddler and K-9 Team Expose Hidden Contraband," and "Little Finger, Big Impact, How a Toddler Helped Police Make a Crucial Discovery." Social media buzzed with images of Riley pointing, Max alert, and the stunned suspect, captivating a national audience that couldn't get enough of the extraordinary coincidence. At the courthouse, Judge Thompson filed a brief statement acknowledging the remarkable events of the morning. He praised both the K-9 unit's professionalism and the unusual but undeniable contribution of a young spectator. While maintaining his judicial neutrality, the judge recognized that today's events had demonstrated the unpredictable ways in which truth could be revealed. Even the most careful planning and experienced investigation could be influenced by chance observations, a lesson that resonated with everyone who had witnessed the morning proceedings. For Riley, the excitement was much simpler and far more innocent. She was happy to see Max again, patting his head when Harris allowed her to reach forward. "Good doggy," she squeaked, clapping her tiny hands. To her, the day had been about pointing, giggling, and interacting with a friendly dog who had stayed close to her side. She had no understanding of the weight of the events she had influenced, yet her actions had tangible consequences that would ripple far beyond the walls of the courtroom. Her mother watched in amazement, realizing that even the smallest gestures could sometimes have monumental effects. Community members soon recognized the unlikely heroics. Police precincts received calls from neighbors praising both Riley and Max. Local businesses displayed photos in their windows, and schools used the story as a lesson in courage, attention, and observation. It became more than a news story. It was a symbol of how awareness, no matter how small or unexpected, could make a significant difference. The community rallied around the narrative, celebrating the convergence of innocence and skill that had led to the exposure of hidden criminal activity. At the police precinct, Harris prepared Max for his usual debriefing, but the dog's energy had changed slightly. Max had performed flawlessly, yet there was a subtle recognition in his eyes as he looked at Riley through the office window. Harris chuckled softly. "You've got a new partner, Max," he murmured. Max responded with a soft bark, tail wagging slightly. Though Max could not understand the full story, his behavior reflected the bond formed, however briefly, with a small observer whose instincts had aligned with his training to produce an extraordinary outcome. Emily reflected on the day's events, still trying to reconcile reality with the surreal nature of the experience. "Who would have thought?" she whispered to her husband, who had remained quietly proud throughout the chaos. "Our little girl, she just pointed, and everything changed." He nodded, equally awed. They realized that while Riley had no concept of what she had done, her instincts had bridged the gap between innocence and experience, guiding trained professionals to a truth that might have otherwise remained concealed. It was a humbling reminder that even the youngest members of society could play a vital role in moments of consequence. Back at the courthouse, journalists continued to follow the case closely. They interviewed Detective Harris, Max, and court officials, highlighting the unprecedented collaboration between a toddler and a K-9. The story resonated with audiences nationwide, prompting discussions about intuition, vigilance, and the unexpected ways in which truth can be revealed. Social media amplified the narrative, creating an online wave of admiration for the toddler, the dog, and the law enforcement team. Hashtags like #TinyHero, #K9Partner, and #ToddlerDetective trended for days, spreading the story far beyond the local community. The suspect, Daniel Spencer, meanwhile, faced intensified scrutiny. His nervous behavior in court had left a lasting impression on both the jurors and the public. Spencer's failed attempt to mask guilt highlighted the power of observation, even from the youngest witnesses. The contrast between his calculated deceit and Riley's instinctual clarity underscored the unpredictability of human and animal interactions in moments of legal consequence. Every action he had taken was now under scrutiny, magnified by the extraordinary circumstances of the discovery. As the days passed, Riley's role in the discovery became a source of inspiration for the community. Local schools discussed her story and lessons about observation and awareness, while community centers highlighted the narrative as a symbol of courage and vigilance. The toddler's simple gesture had sparked a chain of events that extended far beyond the courtroom. demonstrating that impact was not always measured by age, training, or intention. Sometimes the smallest actions could carry profound significance, influencing outcomes in ways no one could predict. Detective Harris, reflecting on the events later that week, acknowledged the rare and extraordinary nature of what had transpired. "We rely on Max every day to uncover truths we can't see," he said during a media interview. But today, a tiny human just 3 years old helped guide that process. It's a reminder that observation and intuition can come from the most unexpected sources. Max sat beside him, alert but calm, ears twitching as if agreeing. It was a rare acknowledgement of the remarkable partnership, unintentional yet highly effective, between child and dog. Emily and her family received a formal letter of commendation from the local police department, recognizing Riley's unique contribution. While the toddler had not understood the significance, the gesture honored her instinct and courage in the face of an unusual situation. The letter described how Riley's pointing had helped uncover critical evidence, praising her for an extraordinary, albeit unintentional, role in law enforcement. Emily framed the letter proudly, a lasting reminder of the day her daughter became an unlikely hero. The story continued to ripple through the community, inspiring both adults and children. Public talks, school presentations, and local events highlighted the narrative as a lesson in awareness, vigilance, and the surprising power of innocence. Riley became a symbol not just for her hometown, but for a broader audience. The idea that even the smallest participants could influence outcomes, that instinct and observation could transcend age, and that sometimes the unlikeliest heroes were also the most impactful. By the end of the week, the combination of Max's trained skill and Riley's instinct had become legendary in local news and law enforcement circles. The toddler and the dog were celebrated, not just for the evidence uncovered, but for the demonstration of how attention, instinct, and vigilance, regardless of age or training, could make a tangible difference. Communities, schools, and families shared the story widely, embracing it as both a feel-good moment and a lesson in the unexpected ways truth could emerge. And through it all, Riley remained blissfully unaware of the magnitude of her contribution. She simply pointed, giggled, and clapped, seeing only the immediate joy of interaction with a friendly dog. Max, trained yet attuned, responded faithfully to his handler and the environment, unaware of the larger narrative forming around him. Together, Toddler and K9 had created a ripple effect that reached far beyond their understanding, transforming a simple pointing gesture into a story of community impact, vigilance, and the extraordinary power of ordinary individuals. The recognition was clear. Sometimes, heroes emerge in the most unexpected forms. A toddler's instinct, a dog's training, and the events that unfolded in the courtroom quickly became a topic of discussion far beyond the precinct and courthouse walls. Law enforcement agencies across the county studied the incident, noting the unusual yet effective combination of instinct, observation, and professional training. Detective Harris participated in meetings and briefings, recounting the details of the morning in meticulous detail. Max's performance had been textbook, but what captured the attention of officers and trainers alike was Riley's intuitive pointing. Though unintentional, her behavior had highlighted a crucial aspect of observation that professionals sometimes overlook. Instinct can be as powerful as training, even when it comes from the most unexpected sources. Emily and her family became local figures of admiration. Neighbors, friends, and community members marveled at the story of a 3-year-old whose simple gesture had made such a profound impact. Conversations in schools, community centers, and local gatherings often circled back to Riley's actions and Max's alertness. Parents used the story to encourage awareness in their own children, emphasizing the importance of noticing details, trusting instincts, and communicating what they observed. The story transcended mere entertainment. it became a teaching moment about responsibility, observation, and the value of paying attention to the world around us. In the weeks that followed, the court proceedings continued. The evidence revealed by Riley and Max played a pivotal role in the prosecution's case against Daniel Spencer. Every piece of contraband uncovered strengthened the legal position, making it increasingly difficult for the suspect to mount a credible defense. Lawyers, jurors, and courtroom staff were struck not only by the unusual circumstances of the evidence's discovery, but also by the undeniable link between behavior, observation, and factual outcomes. Judge Thompson occasionally referenced the incident in procedural notes, emphasizing the importance of attention to detail and the unforeseen contributions of witnesses, regardless of age. For Detective Harris, the events of that morning became a touchstone in his career. In interviews with fellow officers and community leaders, he often reflected on the rare convergence of chance and preparation. "Max is trained to detect what we can't see," he said. "But Riley reminded me that even the youngest observer can notice patterns or anomalies that adults might miss. It's a lesson in humility, patience, and attention." His colleagues agreed, acknowledging that law enforcement sometimes relied too heavily on procedure and training, while overlooking the subtle cues that could be spotted by observant individuals. Regardless of age. Emily also reflected deeply on the day's events. Though Riley had acted without understanding the significance of her gestures, the experience taught Emily to appreciate the value of observation and intuition in everyday life. She began encouraging Riley to notice small details, asking her to describe what she saw in her surroundings, and praising the child's curiosity and attentiveness. Emily realized that nurturing observation and encouraging communication, even in small children, could create a foundation for confidence and problem-solving skills. The incident became both a story to share and a lesson to apply in parenting. Community reactions reinforced these lessons. Local schools invited Harris and Max to speak to students about law enforcement, observation, and the importance of noticing details. Emily and Riley attended some of these events, though Riley remained blissfully unaware of her role in the legal process. Children listened intently to stories about how attention and instinct could reveal hidden truths. Teachers used the narrative to encourage critical thinking, curiosity, and empathy. The story of a toddler's pointing and a dog's trained alert became more than an anecdote. It became an educational tool that inspired awareness and engagement in young minds. Media coverage continued to highlight the unusual collaboration. National outlets ran features describing the events in detail, celebrating the combination of innocence and professional skill. Social media amplified the story, with hashtags like #TinyDetective, #K9Partner, and #UnexpectedHeroes trending for weeks. Commenters praised Riley's instinct, Max's training, and Detective Harris's calm professionalism. Many noted that the story illustrated the broader principle that contributions to society could come from anyone, regardless of age, experience, or position. The story was inspiring, humbling, and unforgettable, a rare convergence of innocence and expertise that captured the public imagination. In the legal realm, prosecutors, defense attorneys, and judges alike took note of the unusual circumstances surrounding the discovery of evidence. While Riley's contribution was unintentional, the alignment with Max's training highlighted the importance of observation, vigilance, and procedural accuracy. The case became a reference point for discussions about evidence discovery, courtroom procedure, and the interplay between intuition and formal investigation. Legal scholars analyzed the incident, noting the unique dynamics that had elevated a seemingly minor gesture into a critical element of a criminal case. For Riley, the lessons were simpler, yet no less meaningful. She learned that pointing, observing, and communicating, even in the most innocent ways, could draw attention and create outcomes she did not fully understand. Through her mother's guidance, she gradually developed an appreciation for curiosity and attentiveness. She began noticing small details in her everyday life. A bird perched on a branch, a leaf moving in the wind, or a friend quietly drawing in a corner. Emily celebrated these small observations, recognizing that Riley's early display of instinct and attentiveness could be nurtured into lifelong skills of awareness, empathy, and insight. Detective Harris also used the incident as a training example for K-9 units. During briefings and workshops, he emphasized the importance of recognizing subtle cues, paying attention to patterns, and appreciating the unpredictability of human behavior. Max's behavior, paired with Riley's intuitive pointing, provided a real-world example of how law enforcement could benefit from attentiveness beyond formal procedures. Officers discussed scenarios in which civilians, regardless of age, might provide insights that contribute meaningfully to investigations, underscoring the value of collaboration between trained professionals and observant bystanders. The suspect, Daniel Spencer, faced the consequences of his actions, and his attempts at deception were overshadowed by the extraordinary circumstances of the evidence's discovery. Legal analysts noted that the case demonstrated how truth could emerge through unexpected channels, and how even the most carefully concealed actions could be exposed by a combination of observation, intuition, and professional vigilance. The story became a cautionary tale. No amount of planning could guarantee secrecy when truth had all eyes. In the most unlikely forms, community organizations began hosting workshops and awareness programs inspired by the story. Parents, teachers, and community leaders highlighted the importance of nurturing curiosity, encouraging observation, and recognizing the value of seemingly small gestures. The narrative of Riley and Max became a template for teaching mindfulness, attention, and collaboration. Participants learned that vigilance, empathy, and awareness were not just professional skills, they were life skills, applicable to every setting and valuable at any age. For Emily and her family, the experience reinforced bonds and strengthened appreciation for life's unpredictability. They learned that courage and insight could manifest in small, seemingly insignificant actions, and that nurturing attentiveness and curiosity could produce extraordinary outcomes. The story of their daughter, the toddler who had pointed, and the dog who had confirmed suspicion, became a family legend, one they would recount for years, celebrating the alignment of chance, instinct, and dedication that had produced an unforgettable result. Ultimately, the lessons learned extended beyond the courtroom, law enforcement, or local community. They spoke to the broader human experience, that awareness and intuition could reveal truths hidden from casual observation, that contributions could come from any member of society, and that moments of extraordinary consequence could emerge from ordinary circumstances. Riley's pointing and Max's alertness symbolized the unexpected ways in which collaboration, observation, and attentiveness could combine to produce remarkable outcomes. The story became a permanent part of the community's cultural memory, celebrated in local newspapers, community events, and educational programs. It inspired children to trust their instincts, encouraged adults to remain attentive, and reminded law enforcement professionals of the value of observation beyond formal training. In the end, Riley and Max were recognized not only for the immediate discovery, but for the broader message they had conveyed, that vigilance, awareness, and courage could come in the most unanticipated forms, leaving lasting lessons for everyone who witnessed or learned of their extraordinary partnership. The day of the official recognition ceremony arrived, bringing a sense of excitement and anticipation to the community. City Hall had been decorated for the occasion, with banners celebrating unexpected heroes, fluttering gently in the breeze. Local officials, law enforcement officers, community leaders, journalists, and curious citizens gathered to witness an event that was as unique as it was heartwarming. At the center of it all were Emily and Riley, along with Detective Harris and Max, the German shepherd whose presence had been as crucial as the toddler's instinctive gestures. Emily held Riley's tiny hand as they walked toward the stage, keeping a gentle grip on her daughter's excitement. Riley's eyes sparkled, taking in the decorations, the crowd, and the sense of importance surrounding the event. She had no understanding of her pivotal role in uncovering contraband, yet the enthusiasm of those around her seemed to confirm that something significant had happened. Emily whispered, "Look, sweetie, everyone's here to thank you." And Riley giggled, pointing at Max, squealing, "Doggy." Max wagged his tail in acknowledgement, a calm and obedient presence beside Harris, who offered a reassuring smile. Mayor Carolyn Thompson stepped forward to address the crowd, her voice resonant with pride. "Today, we gather to celebrate courage, intuition, and vigilance," she began. "We honor not only trained professionals who dedicate their lives to protecting our community, but also the unexpected heroes whose instinct and observation reveal truths that might otherwise remain hidden." The mayor's words carried weight, acknowledging that the story of a toddler and a canine was more than an unusual anecdote. It was a symbol of community, awareness, collaboration, and unexpected heroism. Detective Harris stepped forward to speak next, gently placing a hand on Max's back. "Max has been part of our team for years, trained to detect what many of us might overlook," he said. "But today, we also recognize someone very special." Riley's instinctive actions helped guide us to evidence that could have remained hidden. Her attention, her pointing, and her curiosity remind us all that awareness can come from the most unexpected sources. The crowd erupted in applause, with Riley clapping her tiny hands, eyes wide and delighted, still pointing at Max, as if celebrating their shared accomplishment. Emily felt a rush of emotion, tears welling in her eyes as she hugged her daughter. She whispered, "You did something amazing, Riley," and kissed her forehead. Riley giggled again, patting Max's head, oblivious to the legal and community significance of the day. Yet in her innocent actions, she had become a symbol of hope, courage, and the extraordinary power of observation. The crowd recognized that heroism did not always require experience, age, or intent sometimes. It required only awareness and instinct. Awards were presented to both Riley and Max. Riley received a medal for her outstanding observation and community contribution, a small ribbon pinned to her tiny shirt, shining in the sunlight. Max received a ceremonial collar and badge, symbolizing his crucial role in the discovery. The juxtaposition of toddler and dog, one trained only by instinct, the other by rigorous preparation, highlighted the rare and remarkable alignment that had occurred. Local reporters captured the moment, cameras flashing as Riley held up her medal and Max stood proudly beside her. Journalists interviewed both Harris and Emily, asking questions about the events that had led to the discovery. Harris emphasized the lessons of attentiveness and collaboration, praising Riley's unexpected role. "We trained dogs for years to notice patterns and detect substances," he said. "But sometimes, observation comes from the unlikeliest sources." Riley reminded us that awareness doesn't always require expertise. It can simply require paying attention. Emily added, "I never imagined that a toddler could have such an impact, but Riley's curiosity and attention made all the difference. We are proud and grateful for her role, even though she had no idea at the time." The community celebration extended beyond the ceremony. Local schools invited Riley and Max to visit classrooms, allowing children to hear the story firsthand. Teachers emphasized curiosity, attention to detail, and the value of observation. Students were fascinated by the notion that even a tiny person or a dog could influence outcomes in meaningful ways. The story became a teaching tool, illustrating the power of instinct, awareness, and participation, regardless of one's age or background. Emily marveled at how far-reaching the impact had become. She noticed families discussing the story over dinner, children imitating Riley's pointing gestures, and parents emphasizing observation and attentiveness in everyday life. The tale had become more than a local sensation. It had evolved into a lesson on vigilance, awareness, and the potential for small actions to create meaningful change. The recognition ceremony, though celebratory, underscored a larger truth. The community had embraced the story as a symbol of empowerment, collaboration, and inspiration. Riley, oblivious to the depth of her influence, found joy in interacting with Max throughout the ceremony. She laughed, ran in small circles, and pointed repeatedly at her canine companion. Max remained calm, trained yet responsive, ears forward and eyes alert, enjoying the attention without losing composure. Their partnership, though brief in literal terms, had created a narrative that resonated with countless people. The crowd recognized the magic of the moment, the alignment of innocence, instinct, and professional skill that had produced an unforgettable outcome. Even Daniel Spencer, whose actions had sparked the investigation, could not escape the public attention. The community, while respecting the legal process, noted the stark contrast between his attempts at deception and the pure, intuitive actions of Riley and Max. Media outlets highlighted this contrast, emphasizing the story's broader moral. Honesty, attention, and instinct often reveal truths that pretense and deceit cannot hide. Spencer's failed concealment became a secondary lesson, underscoring the unexpected ways in which justice and awareness intersected. The celebration continued into the afternoon with speeches, photographs, and community engagement activities. Children participated in observation games, mimicking Riley's, pointing and learning about paying attention to their surroundings. Families posed with Max for photographs, while Emily shared her insights about nurturing curiosity and attentiveness in young children. The story's influence had permeated the community, fostering lessons in vigilance, empathy, and the unexpected ways small actions could create significant impact. Detective Harris reflected privately on the journey from courtroom drama to community celebration. He marveled at how a routine day of procedure had turned into a moment of inspiration. Max, ever faithful, remained at his side, a steady reminder of the role that training, observation, and partnership could play in uncovering truth. Harris recognized that the story was not just about law enforcement. It was about collaboration, awareness, and the unforeseen ways in which ordinary participants could influence extraordinary outcomes. As the ceremony drew to a close, Emily and Riley stood side by side with Max, surrounded by applause and admiration. Emily whispered to her daughter, "You've done something amazing today, and people will remember it." Riley giggled, pointing at Max, squeaking, "Doggy hero." It was a fitting tribute to the partnership that had brought them all here, the unintentional heroism of a toddler and the professional dedication of a German shepherd, guided by experience, instinct, and attention to detail. The story of Riley and Max would continue to inspire the community long after the ceremony ended. Local newspapers featured follow-up articles. Schools incorporated the narrative into lessons, and law enforcement agencies referenced it in training and presentations. The alignment of innocence, instinct, and skill became a symbol of possibility, a reminder that heroism can emerge in the most unlikely forms, and that attention, observation, and courage, no matter the source, have the power to shape outcomes in profound ways. In the quiet moments afterward, Emily held Riley on her lap, watching Max interact gently with members of the community. "We will always remember today," Emily said softly, brushing a strand of hair from her daughter's eyes. Riley smiled, pointing randomly at the crowd, unaware of the lasting impact she had created. Max nudged Emily's hand affectionately, as if acknowledging the toddler's contribution in his own canine way. It was a scene of quiet triumph, a blend of innocence, loyalty, and shared achievement. The story concluded not with fanfare, but with a sense of lasting legacy. Riley and Max had become symbols of vigilance, courage, and the extraordinary potential of ordinary beings. The courtroom incident, once an unusual event, had transformed into a narrative of inspiration, education, and community pride. Heroes came in many forms, and on that unforgettable day, a tiny child and a German shepherd had reminded the world of the remarkable power of instinct, attention, and collaboration. As the sun set over the community, Emily held Riley close, reflecting on the journey from courtroom discovery to public celebration. "You've changed lives today," she whispered, smiling. Riley giggled, patting Max's head, pointing once more, and squeaking, "Doggy." Max responded with a soft bark, tail wagging, completing the unlikely trio whose combined actions had left an indelible mark on the hearts and minds of everyone who had witnessed, reported, or learned of the story. The recognition, celebration, and